How much do humans love gambling? So much that we invented dice games before we developed written language. The earliest peoples used stones, seeds, bones, and anything else at hand to roll for divination, gaming, and most of all, gambling. From the Romans throwing Tessarae to high rollers in casinos today, we are drawn to the thrill of dice. One dice game in particular was not only incredibly popular in the Middle Ages, but it's also the direct ancestor of modern-day craps. The game of hazard. This time on The Game Pitch. To play hazard, all you need are two six-sided dice. More complex versions of the game may use a stakes board to keep bets organized and a banker who pays out winnings and collects losing bets, but really, two dice are all you need. I made these dice out of tagua nuts, also called vegetable ivory. If you want to see how I made these along with another set of wooden dice, I have a link to my build video in the description below. The game of hazard developed from simpler dice games until it reached a more or less consistent rule set in the Middle Ages, roughly the 5th to the 15th century. As you might imagine, with a game that had a nearly 1,000-year run, the nuances of the rules changed between cities, countries, and centuries. By the 17th century, elaborate gambling halls were built up around the game of hazard, much like modern-day casinos. But I'm going to focus on hazard of the Middle Ages, which was still very much a street-level game. Any number of people can play hazard, each rolling the dice in turn. The caster is the person who currently holds the dice. Everyone betting against the caster is called a fader. To start, the caster throws two dice to set a target number, called the main. This number has to be from 5 to 9, so any initial roll that isn't 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9 is ignored and re-rolled. Once the main is set, the caster rolls again to set another target number called the chance. The chance has to be from 4 to 10. While throwing the chance, the caster can win or lose right away. And here's where it gets confusing. Certain numbers result in an immediate win, called a nick. Other numbers result in an immediate loss, called an out. Once you set your main, hitting that number again while rolling for the chance is an immediate win. A roll of 2 or 3 is called the crabs and is always an immediate out. The etymology of crabs is disputed, but some sources believe that when you roll a 2 or 3 and are immediately out, you get sour, like the taste of crab apples. I created this chart because there was no way I was going to remember all of the nicks and outs. I have a PDF you can download down in the description. So, for example, rolling a 5 as your main gives you a nick of 5 and outs of 2 and 3, which are always outs, plus 11 and 12. But rolling an 8 as your main gives you a nick of 8 and 12 and outs of 2, 3, and 11. If you don't roll a nick or an out on your next throw after the main, that number becomes your chance. From there, you continue to roll until you match either your main or your chance. If you match your chance, you win all the stakes on the table. If you match your main, you lose, and the stakes are divided equally among the faders. If the caster wins, they can choose to remain the caster or pass the dice to the fader closest to their left. So I'll throw a couple of rounds because it's easier to understand when you see it in play. Got my dice tray, got my cheat sheet, got my dice. So every round begins with the caster throwing a main, which has to be 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9. So start by throwing the main. That's 10. That falls outside of this number, so I got to throw again until I get something that's from 5 to 9. 7. So 7 is my main. That means my nick will be 7 or 11, which means if I throw that again, I win automatically. My outs will be 2, 3, and 12, which means if I throw those, I'm out automatically. Every other number becomes my chance. So now I'm throwing my chance. 6. So 6 is neither my nick nor my out, so that becomes my chance. So my main is 7, my chance is 6. So at this point, these numbers no longer matter. All that matters is the main and the chance. 7 for the main, 6 for the chance. So if I throw my main, I lose. If I throw my chance, I win. 4. So that's neither main nor chance. I throw again. 4 again. 10. 10 again. 9. 8. 2. 5. 6. So 6 is my chance, so I win. Next caster starts by throwing the main. 5. So with a main of 5, my nick is 5, my out is 2, 3, 11, and 12. Everything else is my chance. 4. So 4 becomes my chance. Main of 5, chance of 4. Again, now 5 and 4 are the only numbers that matter. 5. So 5 was my main. I match my main. I lose. Next caster. 4. So 4 isn't one of the main numbers. So I throw again. 10. Same deal. Got to throw again. 7. All right, 7 is my main. 7 and 11 are my nick. 2, 3, and 12 are my outs. 6. So 6 becomes my chance. 7 is my main. 6 is my chance. Again, 7 and 6. Those are the only numbers we care about now. 7. So 7 was my main. So I match my main, so I lose. Last caster. 9. 9 is my main. That means 9 is my nick. 2, 3, 11, 12 are my outs. Everything else is chance. 7. So that's neither my nick nor my out. So 7 becomes my chance. 9 is my main. 7 is my chance. 3. 7. So 7 was my chance. So I win. So hazard is definitely confusing when you first start to play, but I think after you've played a couple rounds, it becomes much more intuitive of what numbers you're looking for, and have your cheat sheet handy. There are several variations of the game, with one of the most popular allowing the caster to call his main instead of having to roll for it. This slightly improves the player's chance to win, assuming they choose 7, which has the best odds. Hazard was wildly popular throughout the Middle Ages, too popular according to many anti-gambling advocates. As numerous illustrations of the period show hazard players naked, having resorted to betting their clothing after they ran out of money, maybe the anti-gamblers had a point. There are several theories as to how the game of hazard got its name. According to medieval priest and chronicler William of Tyre, the game was invented during the First Crusade as soldiers laid siege to the city of Azaz in 1125 CE. In Crusader sources, Azaz is referred to as Hazard, giving the game its name. This story is almost certainly apocryphal, for several reasons, the most damning of which was that William of Tyre's original written account of the siege doesn't mention dice at all. The game of hazard doesn't appear in the work until a translation into Old French is published nearly a century later, hazard presumably added by the translator. That said, it does appear that hazard has a connection to the Arabic world. The word hazard may be a corruption of the Arabic word for dice, azar, or yasara, meaning he played at dice in Arabic. Or it may come from the Spanish verb azar, meaning an unfortunate dice roll. But the Spanish derives from the Arabic azar again, so all roads lead back to Arabic. However the name was first coined, over time and distance it evolved into the English word we know as hazard. Perhaps the earliest published rules for hazard come from the Book of Games, commissioned by King Alfonso the Wise in the 13th century. However, the game described therein differs from medieval hazard in several key ways. The Book of Games also describes a game called Half Hazard. This is also a two-player game using 3 dice. However, Half Hazard introduces the concepts of the nick, the out, and a version of the chance. This game is closer to what the medieval gambler would have recognized as hazard. Amusingly, the illustrations accompanying hazard in the Book of Games show several players who have once again gambled away their clothing. Hazard is mentioned in Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales, specifically the Pardoner's Tale. He said, "I will not thus debase my name, nor will I take upon me so great shame. You to ally with common hazarders, send if you will other ambassadors. For my truth, I say I'd rather die, than you with gamblers like to them ally. For you that are so glorious in honors, shall never ally yourselves with hazarders." A 15th century addition to the Canterbury Tales, not written by Chaucer, recounts the tale of Berwin, he himself a hazarder. Berwin furthermore loved the dice, and to play at hazard, and held thereof great price, and all other games that losery was in, and evermore he lost, and never might win. Berwin at hazard many a nights he waked, and oft-time it fell that he came home all naked. Once again, someone playing hazard until he loses all his money and continues to play by literally betting the shirt off his back. Hazard is listed as one of the 5 most popular English games in a 1974 book, The Complete Gamester by Charles Cotton. Hazard shares the spotlight with billiards, backgammon, cockfighting, and the card game whist. Cotton calls Hazard the most bewitching game that is played on the dice. However, Cotton goes on to write, "When a man begins to play, he knows not when to leave off, and having since accustomed himself to play at hazard, he hardly ever after minds anything else." Cotton's final verdict is that the man who gives up playing hazard is happy, but a man who has never heard of hazard is happiest. By the 18th century, hazard was big business in England. A well-known gentlemen's club called Crockford's featured hazard among other games. A politician of the time, Sir William Gregory, writes in his autobiography that "Too many an ardent admirer of hazard has lost all his fortune at the gambling table of Crockford's." Hazard eventually found its way across the pond to America. Some sources claim that hazard traveled with the Mayflower, but that seems unlikely to me. But then again, it wouldn't be the first time that a deeply religious congregation partook in the very same vices that they then condemned on Sundays. But perhaps the most credible accounts of hazard coming to America is the story of Bernard Xavier Philippe de Marigny de Mandeville. He was born in 1785 into a wealthy New Orleans family. He inherited a vast plantation at the age of 15 when his father died. It is reported that his every whim indulged while his father was alive. He became as wild and headstrong after his death as an unbacked Mustang, and his guardian, abandoning all idea of control, finally shipped him to England, hoping that life abroad might mend his manner. But in London, Bernard's dissipations became only more pyrotechnic, and he spent most of his time at Almack's and other famous gambling places. It's in one of these gambling halls that de Marigny most likely first encountered and fell in love with the game of hazard. Returning to New Orleans in 1802, he attempted to introduce a simplified version of hazard to his highbrow peers, but they didn't share his passion for the game. Undaunted, he then brought the game to the lower classes, where it was an instant hit. It was during this period that the modern game of craps began to emerge, starting with the name. One theory is that craps comes from the French word crapaud, meaning toad, which was used to describe the player squatting down to throw the dice. But more likely is that the name craps is the Louisiana Creole version of crabs, the term that had been used for centuries for the losing rolls of 2 or 3. In de Marigny's simplified version, instead of rolling for the main, he made the number 7 the automatic main, which slightly leaned the odds towards the caster's side. This simplified the game and made for faster play, which helped the game find its way into the gambling houses of New Orleans. Then, in 1907, a dice maker from Philadelphia named John H. Wynne introduced several new betting options for craps, earning him the title of the father of modern craps. The outbreak of World War II helped introduce craps to young men of every social class. The quick play and minimal equipment made it popular for soldiers trying to relax and kill some time during breaks in the fighting. This familiarity with the game would make craps the dominant casino game in post-war Las Vegas and around the country. Now that we know about the rules and history of hazard, how do you win? Hazard, especially the version played in the Middle Ages, is strictly a game of chance. This means that winning strategies have more to do with managing your betting and observing the other players around the table than some sort of special insight into the game. The odds of rolling each main can easily be calculated, like here. A main of 7 always gives you the best odds. A main of 6 or 8 is middle of the road. And a main of 5 or 9 provides the least favorable odds, so bet accordingly. Hazard is very much a social game, so the behavior of your fellow gamblers can have a big impact on your strategy. Remember, you're essentially betting that the caster will lose. So if you observe a particular player who makes bad choices, is influenced by previous rolls, or is maybe a little too drunk, it can be profitable to make a bigger wager if you think they will do something dumb on their turn, like betting big on a main of 9. Likewise, consider your own behavior. You can fly under the radar, making small bets until you see the opportunity to bet big on an undisciplined caster to lose. Or be loud and annoying, encouraging players to place bigger bets even when you have a solid main, hoping to break your bank. But the ultimate strategy is the same today as it was centuries ago. Never bet more than you can afford to lose. And that is hazard. If you learned something in this video, I hope you'll like and subscribe. I put out new videos every week, one on the rules, history, and strategy of an ancient game, and one on how to build your own version. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on The Gaming.